All right, so yesterday I told you guys about that Texas restrictive abortion bill that they passed, which basically outlaws abortion after 6 weeks, which is when a vast majority of women would actually know that they were pregnant in the first place. So it basically completely outlaws abortion, and on top of that, offers $10,000 bounties to anyone to basically go and sue somebody who they suspect had an abortion or aided and abetted an abortion in any way, shape, or form, and gives them the ability to pursue a legal case against them. So it's a completely ridiculous, backwards, authoritarian law, and the Supreme Court has now officially come out and basically given their initial opinion on this, and their opinion is that this law can stand at least temporarily. So here are some of the details on this. So Supreme Court denies request to stop Texas 6-week abortion ban with John Roberts and liberals dissenting. So the Supreme Court formally denied a request from Texas abortion providers to freeze a state law that bars abortion after 6 weeks, and Chief Justice John Roberts joined the three liberals in dissent, and the court's move means that the law, which is one of the strictest in the nation and bans abortion before many people even know that they are pregnant, about 85% is what they estimated, and it will remain on the books. So the majority stressed that it had not formed a conclusion about the constitutionality of the law, despite the order coming nearly 24 hours after the law, the tightest abortion restrictions since the 1973 landmark Roe v. Wade took effect. So again, kind of confusing here because they're not commenting on the constitutionality of it while simultaneously letting a blatantly unconstitutional law take effect in Texas. So it's kind of confusing, but this isn't necessarily the last step in this entire legal process. There are going to be continued appeals and continued processes that are going to be underway for people to try to challenge this law. But this is just a statement that gives them permission to continue enforcing it in the meantime, which is going to unleash complete chaos in Texas, and we'll talk about why. But basically, here's a map that they provided on CNN that I think is useful just to give you a perspective on how restrictive this is. I mean, even relative to like my conservative state here in Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana or Arkansas or South Carolina, Florida even, all of these incredibly conservative states, this Texas law is even more restrictive than those. Again, doesn't even provide a cutout for cases of rape or incest. So if you are somebody who happens to be raped, then you would be forced to carry that baby to term and deliver it with no actual recourse or ability to have any control over your body or your autonomy in that way. It's despicable. It's disgusting at every single level. And this is where Texas is at right now. Okay, even conservative relative to the other insanely conservative states that are surrounding it. But if this law is able to be upheld, this law is going to be transferred to all of these other states, right? They're going to be pushing this in every Republican state that is controlled by a Republican state legislature. So this is really just the beginning and the launching off point for what could be an incredibly repressive future that is ahead of us. So just to give you a little bit of perspective on what this is actually looking like on the ground. So after it took effect early Wednesday morning, clinics across Texas drastically limited their services. Whole Woman's Health, which operates 4 clinics in Texas, said it is offering abortion services only if no embryonic or fetal cardiac activity is detected in the sonogram, according to a spokesperson. And several other providers are also taking that limited approach. Again, this is basically the same as saying that 6-week threshold period. So they have effectively outlawed abortions because if it's a 6-week period, it's basically logistically impossible for you to be made aware that you are pregnant, right? Because it would only be like 2 weeks after potentially you would know that your period was late. And so it's only, you have 2 weeks to basically know that you are pregnant, make a decision on what you want to do about that, and then, make an appointment and have this procedure actually done. So it's just logistically impossible. They have effectively completely outlawed abortion. And just to remind you guys of how insane this law actually is. So the law allows any person, as long as they're not a government official, to bring, and this is part of the reason why they did this, the government official part of it, why they deputized private citizens instead of having government officials enforce this law, specifically because it will make it harder for the Supreme Court to undo the law. Because typically what the Supreme Court would do in this situation is they would bring a case specifically against the state lawmakers who are enforcing this law, but they specifically organize it like this to make it more difficult to overturn. But so anyone, as long as they are not a government official, to bring a civil lawsuit in a state court against a provider accused of violating the ban, regardless of whether the person bringing the lawsuit has any connection to the abortion being sought, right? So it's not as if like, oh, the dad who disagrees with the mother getting an abortion, it's not as if like, oh, it's only relegated to the dad who would maybe be affected by that decision can bring a lawsuit. No, it's literally anybody can bring a lawsuit. So already we have, freakish conservatives, lunatic conservatives that are sitting outside of these clinics and they're photographing photographing people's license plates, and they're photographing people and trying to collect evidence to bring court cases against people who they don't even fucking know. But under this law, they are allowed to bring a court case against. And so they continue saying, anyone violating the ban, regardless of whether the person bringing the lawsuit has any connection to the abortion being sought, and if they prevail, they are entitled to at least $10,000 in damages. And the law is structured to make it especially costly for clinics that are targeted with an enforcement action. So in other words, you're giving a $10,000 bounty to people to go and look for these women or anyone in connection with women who are potentially getting an abortion. So you're deputizing private citizens to go collect bounties on women. And then on top of that, you're making it especially costly for clinics, specifically for the purposes of trying to get these clinics to go bankrupt and eventually shut down, so that there are no clinics where you could even possibly get an abortion in the state of Texas. And they continue saying it prohibits clinics from recouping attorney's fees from their court foes, even if a judge sides with the provider in the lawsuit. So even if you are one of these clinics and somebody brings a case against you, and you win that case against them, then you still have to pay the legal fees. So again, they're just trying to bankrupt all of these clinics. And they continue saying the measure also prevents clinics from seeking to transfer the cases to venues more convenient for them, unless they have the agreement with their opponents. So it's completely outlawing abortion. They're making it as difficult as possible for these clinics. And it's just absolutely backwards and repressive and ridiculous. So here's what AOC had to say about this, just to give you a take. So Republicans promised to overturn Roe v. Wade, and they have. Democrats can either abolish the filibuster and expand the court, or do nothing, as millions of people's bodies, rights, and lives are sacrificed for the far-right minority rule. This shouldn't be a difficult decision. It should not be a difficult decision, and she is 1000% correct here. This is a choice that's on the table right now. You either get rid of the filibuster and expand the courts, right? Or you sacrifice Roe v. Wade. That's it. Those are the two options that are on the table right now, because you can't count on this current 6-3 conservative, ridiculous Supreme Court to actually rule on the right side of this. So you got to scrap that, get rid of the filibuster, and expand the courts. And if the question is, oh, well, then Republicans will do that in the future. Okay, well, then don't plan on losing to Republicans. Maybe try to actually win some elections, maybe improve people's material conditions so that they will support you as a party. Abortion rights are an overwhelmingly popular issue. Why would you not take the fight on this? The American people are on your side on this fight. So this is something that just absolutely has to happen, or you're basically, as she says, sacrificing everyone's bodies, people's bodies, their rights, and their lives for the far-right majority rule that dominates our current Supreme Court makeup. So this is a situation on the hand. Will Democrats actually do something about it? We'll see.